All right, you're good.
Okay, welcome everyone. I welcome viewers and community members and commissioners to the Wednesday, July 9th meeting of the Police Policy Committee. It is 5:43 p.m. and I call this meeting to order. I'm going to do a roll call. Commissioner Tara Coleman.
Here.
Commissioner Chandra Marrero Benito.
Present.
Adriana Rodriguez is absent. I, Pete Van Leer, am present. We have a quorum. With that, all right. The agenda is here. Are there any comments or questions about the agenda? Okay.
Looks great.
Great. I do have one thing I'm going to add to discussion in new business is the corrective action guidance GPO, which I'm going to make a proposal on for future discussion. So that's the only thing I'd like to add. And I am going to read this meeting decorum protocol. This meeting of the Cleveland Community Police Commission, the Policy Committee, is a lawful meeting under Section 605.04 of the Codified Ordinances. No person with purpose to prevent or disrupt a lawful meeting shall do any act which obstructs or interferes with the due conduct of such meeting. Members of the public are invited to speak in accordance with the public comment rules. Disruptions, including but not limited to speaking out of turn and or making loud utterances that interferes with the due conduct of this lawful meeting, may constitute a misdemeanor and a violation of Section 605.04. This meeting is disrupted. I will call for a recess and the room will be cleared. Persons who violate the city ordinances and commit misdemeanors may be subject to prosecution. When this body is able to return from recess, then, in compliance with the Ohio Open Meetings Act and Section 101.021 of the Codified Ordinances, the meeting will be open to the public. With that, I believe we don't have our minutes yet from the last meeting. Is that correct? So we will look at them in the future in our next meeting. So any other questions before we proceed? I do not see any members of the public who are here to make comments, so we'll move right into old business, which just puts us on schedule. So two updates, 4.06.07 unmanned aerial systems, which is a GPO that we passed as a full commission back in April, I believe. That is in the process of being operationalized. I talked to somebody from the division today, and it's with the chief, and it should go out very soon. I'm not sure that it has gone out, but it's in the works. They did have some last minute questions, and there were some minor corrections made, but then there was one larger question, and I said that we would have to take it back through the process, and I think they're going to just move forward with it as is. It would have been not a huge change, but substantive enough that I couldn't have said, sure, that's just a correction. The other issue that's come up is the first ever GPO that we passed back last April, I believe it was, or last year anyway, 5.08.04 gunshot detection system ShotSpotter has not actually been operationalized. It got lost in the weeds somewhere. And so as soon as we discovered that, and we flagged that is also in the process, as with the drone, the unmanned aerial system GPO, that is in the process of being operationalized. So that's unfortunate, and we have to. What that means is we really need to make sure that we're keeping on top of that. I was outside of that kind of process before, and I'm a little bit more in it now. Because last year we had staff doing that. So we'll have to just make sure that when we pass something, it actually gets operationalized pretty quickly.
Chair, and you might not know the answer to this. I'm just curious. What is their internal process at CPD once we do pass a GPO, or what has to happen for it to be operational?
I would think that, my understanding is that the policy unit submits it to the chief for approval, and then it goes forward. Okay. It shouldn't take too long, but yeah.
I do believe that part of what happens is when they put out a GPO, it gets sent out to all the officers. I think that there's sometimes like an attestation. And then also, I know they make announcements at roll calls for like 7 days after like there's a change that's made. That's I have kind of limited understanding, but I think that's part of.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious.
That's a good, that reminds me too, that they do some, like on these, on at least one of these, if not a couple of them, they have divisional notices that go out connected to it, which is what they read, I think, I'm pretty sure, right? So that is also part of the process where they announce it, it's read so people know about it, and they have different ones, like, and then I asked them to be sent. I just talked to Deputy Chief Schlott today, getting ready for this meeting, and he said that they had a couple of DNs that were going to go out specific to, I believe, supervisor and the different categories of people, so that they would have the information about the GPOs being operationalized. All right. So with that, we will proceed. And we have 4 GPOs I would be very interested in seeing if we can reach an agreement on and move forward on. The first one on the list here is 4.06.13, the automatic license plate readers. And you should have a printed copy of that in front of you. And okay. So we talked about this last time, I believe, and I don't know that there are. Let me take a quick look here. In the meantime, have you had any questions about this? There were questions around the hot list and things like that.
At the bottom of after C, there seems to be an incomplete sentence.
Oh, yeah, you are correct. The officer in charge of district units with vehicles equipped with ALPR shall be responsible for proper functioning, use, and operation. The OIC shall notify the mobile support unit of any ALPRs that are in need of maintenance.
I think maybe that's supposed to be a heading. I think it's supposed to be a heading.
Yes.
I think it's just missing a capital.
Sense. So let's see, member responsibilities, supervisor responsibilities. There's some formatting issues here that we need to correct because we have member responsibilities B, supervisor responsibilities C, and then it goes into just headers without letters. So we'll have to work on that. So what you're saying maintenance of ALPR systems should be its separate letter?
I think that's a heading.
Heading for.
And I think it just means a capital M. Because I think it matches the manual entries into the ALPR system.
Huh.
So I think it's just noting that it's a separate section.
Okay.
But also I think that maybe those should be bolded because all of the other headings seem to be bolded.
Yeah, I think there's something we have to look at there. And I think it's not the question.
It's not a substantive.
Yeah, the question for me is, does it fall under supervisor responsibilities or is it separate? Because if that falls under supervisor responsibilities, then so does training, data. I mean, because there are no letters after C, supervisor responsibilities. So there's something that happened here in the process that may have removed some formatting.
The manual entries, that seems,
So we should just, yeah.
I guess I'm wondering if those headings are even needed because it's a list of responsibilities. And I feel like
Yeah.
it kind of breaks up the list in a way that's confusing.
Yeah. I think we're going to need to look at this and have some conversation with the policy unit still, I'm afraid. Yeah.
I think the whole thing should be consistently numbered.
Yeah, we need to
Yeah,
work on
we
the
just need
numbering.
to-
Yeah.
Are there any like like aside from that piece, which I'm not sure is substantive, are there any substantive issues here that we want to
Yes.
address? Yeah.
I am unclear on when, or whether certain comments are addressed. So
Right.
like the main one I'm having issue with, this would be on the third page under manual entries. So one of the comments not grayed out. This possibly conflicts with the first page that says RTCC approves, and I can't find that reference. So this may have said something before. You know what I mean? I don't have enough information to know. Like, did it say something before that it was grayed out? So I would just, I guess, ask.
Oh, it's on the second page. It says under administration operations, it says all entries shall be approved by the RTCC before initial entry within the ALPR system.
Okay.
And I think
even
that
so,
comment-
if you read the one right above it, what does this mean? Are they talking about manual searches? This is not practical.
Yeah.
I don't know either. So
Yeah.
I mean, and
Yeah. I agree.
it's probably grayed out for a reason, but I would just ask whoever's closest to it, go through and clean up the comments so that we can vote on like a cleaner copy.
Yeah, it's on me. We'll come back with this.
Okay.
I think that's,
Okay. But I think it's
yeah.
probably fine. It's just,
it's mostly
it's
yeah.
scary to vote on if you don't
Right.
know if those things have been
Okay,
addressed.
yeah, we can hold off on that. I will prioritize that. A lot of moving parts here. Okay. Okay, moving on to 3.01.01, arrestee restraint. Transport and supervision. You should have a copy of that in front of you as well. Arrestee restraint. So you should have an updated copy on this. One thing we had, here are a couple things that have come up, right, and that we've addressed. So on page 2, should be page 2, toward the top, there's an item 6. It's subsection A and B, and then section 6, or subsection 6. If the individual from one of these groups presents a clear and serious risk of physical harm to officers, themselves, or others, or a clear and serious security or flight risk, they may be handcuffed in front first. We had originally said shall. I think the issue there is that this puts officers in a position of, if they're somebody can do a lot with their hands cuffed in front of them, and the concern is that telling them they have to cuff in front first can cause risk of harm. So that's a question that I put it in there as a change that in conversation with the division, with the policy unit. And I think we'd had shall because we do want them to start there, but that presents a conflict with protecting officers who, even if they know somebody is quite a risk to themselves and to the officers, to themselves, to whoever, if it says shall, that means regardless, they have to first handcuff that person, even if they do present a clear and serious risk, they first have to cuff them in front. This allows them to cuff them in front, but if it is a serious risk, they can also cuff them in back. So that's a discussion.
Yeah.
I put that change in there so we could talk about it.
So
And
I-
these are these categories of people who are exceptions.
I think, well, but I think what it's saying is, it's saying that if somebody is a member of one of those groups,
Right.
I feel like it kind of goes against.
Yeah, it's
Because then there's no.
then you just can do it regardless. However, I also see the other side of like, if somebody is a serious danger and they have to come from the front. So we just need to determine what we think is the best approach, or if there's other language that makes sense that allows, this is the problem with these things. Your may or shall are two extremes in some ways. And we'd like to think, it's always going to be obvious what you're going to do and you always do the right thing. So,
But I think what we want them, I think that we want.
I mean, I totally see your point. I'm just
Yeah.
putting
I
it in
think
here
the
so we could
issue
have
right
this
now is
conversation. Yeah.
Should we say exceptions will be made for, but then
Yeah.
it's saying no exceptions?
Yeah. The may
Unless
is
they
a
just
murky
decide
word.
to.
Right. Yeah. So
And the reason why we are calling for exceptions in these situations is because handcuffing in the back has potential health consequences for members of those groups. So I think that one thing you could do.
Yeah, if I may.
Yeah.
yes, please.
To me, what would make more sense is you start with the general rule, right? So members shall handcuff all arrestees. I think the general rule is members shall handcuff all arrestees using sort of behind the back handcuffing, right? And then you lay forth the exceptions. So B should almost be combined with A. Members shall handcuff all arrestees. When handcuffing, members shall handcuff individuals behind their back, etc. Then B should be the exceptions to A, or the general exception should be, handcuffing in the front, and handcuffing in the front may apply to the individuals within this criteria. So A1 through 5. And then C is almost just the exception to the exception, right? Or exemption to the exception, when it is when one of these people a person that falls in one of these categories presents a clear and present danger to officers or himself or herself or others, then you can apply the general rule, if that makes sense.
Let's go through this again. So you're saying one, restraint,
One question
subsection.
before we
Go
do
ahead.
that.
Yeah.
Who made the first draft of this? CPD?
The division,
Okay.
yeah. And you can see at the top it says, well, yours doesn't show color, but mostly the italicized language on the version I have on my computer, it's red. And it says at the top, substantive changes from the division are the red and italicized language. So if you see anything italicized on those print copies, that's from the division. So they had an existing GPO, and then they changed it to update it.
Because I also agree, you normally would write a policy how Alex just described that, but I guess just caution whether, because I know they order things sometimes purposefully
Right.
because they're out in the field and need to
Yeah,
look
they
at
know
it.
that. Yeah.
And so I don't know if that's just you know what I mean? Let's make it consistent with the others.
Mhm.
But I'm fine either way as long as it's not messing up their consistency.
Mhm. So can you talk to me, Commissioner?
So I think What the interim executive director is saying is that we would have members shall arrest all arrestees, and then it would say, when handcuffing, members shall handcuff individuals behind their back and double lock handcuffs to prevent tightening, unless rare and exceptional circumstances when safe and feasible to prevent the double locking of handcuffs. And then you have 1 and 2 as well. So that becomes A. And then B is exceptions shall be made for, or I think exceptions shall be made for, and then A for 1, pregnant or postpartum individuals, children under 13, persons who are elderly and frail, that list. And then it says, and then I think we can say that if an individual from one of and I think then it's up to us to say, do we want the exception to be they are not handcuffed, or that they are handcuffed in front, and that's the exception that's made.
I see. That is clear.
So I think the item for discussion is, because what we have said before was the exception is that they're not handcuffed, and then if officers feel like they pose a danger, at that point they're handcuffed in front. So I think if we feel like, I guess I wonder if a child under 13, under this policy, that anytime a child under 13 is being arrested, they must be handcuffed. And is that the policy we want?
Right.
I would say, kind of with the proposed edit that we're discussing, I think the exception should be, if you're in those groups, you are handcuffed in the front, but to accomplish, Pete, where you were trying to accomplish in that, we could have language that maybe clearly outlines certain circumstances where you wouldn't necessarily have, or does it already do that? So those circumstances would be if they present a clear and serious risk of physical harm.
I mean, I guess my concern
I would leave
is,
it as in the
I don't think that everyone who is arrested is always handcuffed. But this policy would make it so that everyone who is arrested
Understood.
must be
Understood.
handcuffed. And do we want every child under the age of 13 who's arrested, even if they're completely compliant and not, posing a risk to themselves or others, do we want the expectation to be they have to be handcuffed? And my answer is no. If someone is not posing a risk to themselves or others, if they are being compliant with the officer's instructions, I think that it would be better for them to not be restrained if they are members of these groups.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And then when they are in need of restraint, I think it should be in the front.
Mm-hmm. And then
I would
if that
change
still
Right.
is not enough, it can be it.
So I just looked up the current GPO, which is on a website, the CDP's website, or the city's website. And one there is labeled restraint, and it goes through A, B, C, and D. Members, the first A is members shall handcuff all arrestees. Exceptions may be made for juveniles under 10, the elderly, and persons with disabilities. And then, so that list has been fleshed out, and I think we added quite a bit because I think the age was different. We made it 13 in somewhere in this process. I don't remember what it came to us as. I have to look back at previous versions, but it was somewhere between 10 and 13. So that's section A, is like all shall be all handcuffed with exceptions. And then B is members may use discretion in handcuffing persons taken into custody and based solely upon mental health issues. So that's another exception.
Well, it's not an exception, it's a may.
Right, but they may use, it is an exception because the exception to members shall just handcuff all arrestees. And then there's the language about when handcuffing, members shall double lock handcuffs to prevent tightening unless extraordinary circumstances prevent the double locking. And that's pretty much the language that's in there now. Members shall only use the amount of force or restraint necessary to control a non-compliant and/or violent arrestee. So that has been fleshed out into much more specific language about different categories of exceptions. So just keeping that in mind, in terms of the structure of how they structure it, they did start with, shall handcuff all arrestees, but we just have more, they've added more detail and we've been working with that detail. I'm not saying we have to do one thing or that, I'm just giving some context.
I think that one thing we could also do is we could say exceptions shall be made for arrestees who, like you could say arrestees who are compliant and do not pose a threat to themselves or the officers who are a member of these groups. So we could, at the jump, say the exception applies to when these conditions are met. One is that they're not posing a risk and they're being compliant, and B, they're a member of the group.
That's clean. That's a cleaner way.
Because then I think that what I feel strongly about is if somebody is not currently posing a threat and is complying with all orders, then I do think I want that language to be shall, that they shall not be handcuffed. But if they are non-compliant, then I understand why the officers would need to do that.
We would still move up, under that proposal, we would still move up C, D, and E, and then do the exceptions, or would we leave the?
I kind of like the redoing the order, but I mean, I think that there's enough changes we're going to be making to this that we probably aren't going to pass this tonight. So I think we could change around the order and then take that to CDP and say, we changed the order of this from the current structure. Are you okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Like
yeah,
structurally.
I would need feedback on that, especially
Yeah.
since the old one is structured this way. If they're used to like quickly looking at it in that order, I would just get feedback that it's not a big change for them.
Yeah, but I do feel like I do want it to be a shall situation, that if the person is compliant and not posing a threat to anyone, that they are required to make the exception, not that they can make an exception.
Right. Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
And I'd be happy to take the lead on revising this.
Okay.
I know you have a lot.
The other, and I can, that's on SharePoint. I can point you to that, but I'm taking a few notes, but if you know it, it's fine. The other change that happened, they provide some language around under C, current C, unless conditions described above are met, et cetera, double lock handcuffs to prevent tightening unless rare and exceptional circumstances. And that rare and exceptional is in addition, is a change of language. And I got to be honest, I don't remember what it was before. I have to look at it, previous version, but it was language. We reached out to them because they had looked at this and they wanted to clarify some language. And I think we had asked the question too, and they said this is rare and exceptional is the best language here. That is page 2 of 5, section C. You'll see there's a underlined rare and exceptional circumstances.
Oh, B.
Wait, B or C?
I have C.
I'm handcuffing individuals.
Oh, it's just because I think maybe because I've already made some changes here based on this, but you're right, it's probably B. Yeah, sorry about that.
And then so for B, handcuff individuals behind their back, that's a red. Is that red on yours?
Yeah.
Is that how the old one was?
Let me see. It doesn't really clarify. It says it just says they'll handcuff all arrestees with those exceptions. and it says when handcuffing, they shall double lock to prevent tightening unless there's extraordinary, I think the word before was extraordinary circumstances, not rare and exceptional. It doesn't say anything about behind the back or in the front or,
That is just,
yeah,
yeah, that just seems
it's interesting.
aggressive to be a shall. Well, I just
The thing I'm
query
confu-
whether
Yeah.
you have to do that.
Yeah, I think I'm also confused about to prevent tightening unless rare and exceptional circumstances when safe and feasible prevent the double locking. So I think it's saying when what is safe and feasible.
You have to double lock, which means they don't move, they don't accidentally tighten. Like if you pull, they set it so that it won't tighten.
But if it's
overly.
not safe or feasible, you don't have to
I
double.
guess not, yeah. Well, that's the language right now.
But is anyone else concerned that they're saying you have to handcuff people behind there? Isn't it a health risk?
Yeah, we have to think of those exceptions, right? Like the compliant one is a good one if they're being compliant and nonviolent.
Mhm.
And then these other categories. So if there are this is where we're here. So yeah, I mean, tell us.
I don't know. I'm
Okay?
just like, why did they put that in there? I would just be interested to know the logic behind saying anyone. So I would not fit in either of the exceptions, right? So I just would be curious as to why, if I'm arrested, why they have to handcuff me behind my back if I'm not posing a risk.
Yeah.
Well, that's why the language you're suggesting of when compliant, you don't. What does it say?
Well, except
Exceptions shall be made for compliant people not posing a threat. Right. That was your first piece that right out the gate.
well,
that
no,
should
I
be
would
there.
I was saying that in reference to the accepted
the
group.
people in those
Yeah,
protected
right.
groups, like,
Right.
But if
how
you're
it
not
is
in the
now-
accepted group and you're compliant and you're not posing a threat,
then it says
Ah.
shall handcuff.
No, I
people in
was-
the back.
I was interpreting your thing as anybody who's compliant.
No.
But yeah, I mean that's
no, because I think that what I
Okay.
was trying to get at was how do we make 6 less
yeah.
of an issue?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think if you can just like, who helps us, who's our contact with policy?
Yeah, we're just getting into discussion. We've had conversation with them, but this is like we're just raising new questions. We're gonna send it back.
Like you say, like why?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a question I have for them is why, like, the able-bodied, mentally healthy, person, it says they shall be handcuffed behind their back.
Right.
It's like why?
I think what we might want to do is like write something, a draft that's really makes it clear what we want to do, and then talk to them about it and go from there.
Putting myself in the police's shoes, what I imagine the answer they would say is just because someone's compliant right now and not a threat right now doesn't mean that they will.
Yeah,
and
and-
I'm guessing that they would do that as a precautionary measure. However, we might not agree with that.
And yeah,
I think it would be a
Yeah.
conversation too,
It's
like,
a good
how
conversation.
often does that happen? Is it
Right.
really a risk? But I maybe would ask some of the questions simultaneously, so we can make sure as we are revising that we
Yeah,
are
we're
kind
not
of working within
wasting
their
our time.
input.
Right. Yeah, we can do that for sure.
So maybe what I can do is I will write up a list of questions and
That'd be
send
great.
it to you guys for approval, and then we can send it to the division,
And then you can be
and then I can edit once we get the answer.
Doing things like that, not in because we
Oh.
can't really do that by email. But
Oh, that's a good point.
I would agree with Pete's statement. What I would say is perhaps we defer this and at the next meeting, invite an individual from the CDP to sort of give feedback on some of the questions that you guys may have.
that said, I think
Still
having
need a list of questions.
we
though.
should have you can prepare a list of questions.
So she
we
can
can
write
share
the
with
list
them.
of
Yeah.
questions, but she can't share them with us.
So I think what I can do is I can create a list of questions and I can send them to you and to you in separate emails.
That's
I mean, right?
not really. No, that's still making serious. What do they call it? Sequential decision. or
Well, I
something?
guess, I mean, do you guys
That
trust
is
me
not a
to
decision.
make a list
Okay,
of
I'll-
questions?
Back out of it.
Can I just send them a list
Yeah.
of questions?
Mm.
I will just send them a list of questions, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll just send them a list of questions and then use the answers to those questions to help me.
So if you have questions
revise the
now,
draft.
just,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay,
How
my
about this?
question
Yeah.
is,
you write down the questions.
the logic behind requiring as like the standard behind the back handcuffing, or just kind of the logic behind that, just so we can get their kind of insight on that and, you know, see what.
So yeah, I think that,
Oh, I have one other question. My
Yeah.
other question is their comfortability with reordering the structure, and if that has any impact on how they use these documents out in the field.
yeah, I'm just trying to think of a way to,
I'm gonna write these questions and then I can read them to you and you can.
Yeah,
In the
okay.
same meeting.
why don't we, yeah, it's a good idea. Should we move on to a different conversation? If you can multitask a little bit. Okay. All right, we're gonna move on to window tint meters, which is 4.06.17. And this is a fairly short, we discussed this last time, it's fairly short. And this is, this may be, I'm not sure, but it looks like it could be really a new GPO on their part. But the only change we really had to this is if but this is not the most recent version, I'm sorry. Dang it.
I think if I remember.
Yeah, we had added it's
That
not a
you
primary
couldn't be-
stop.
yeah.
This is not, I sent the wrong version.
Okay.
So that's my bad, but the main, darn it, sorry about that. Let me see if I can find it. It's on our SharePoint. Take me a minute here. Okay. Okay, so the change is on page, it's member responsibilities, section 5. Currently, it says members shall utilize a tint meter when there's reasonable suspicion that a vehicle's tint violates Ohio Revised Code. Instead, we have section A says members shall not stop vehicles solely due to suspicion of a window tint violation. Yes, we had discussion, and again, apologies for saying the wrong version.
This one might be ready to pass.
I think so. And then the next B says members shall only utilize a tint meter when there's a reasonable suspicion. So even when they do stop, they will only use it when there's reasonable suspicion that it violates ORC. So it's really just adding that, you know, it is not a primary stop. So, yeah, because I think, yeah, otherwise, that's pretty much where we were.
So you said the version of the shared doc is.
There's a version, June 19th version on SharePoint that has that extra language in it.
How do you get there?
I sent that out a while ago. I can send it again if you
Oh,
want.
I see. Well,
You got it?
Can you send it so we can
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Um,
Okay, I can resend it, I think. Unless you got Pete.
well, yeah, if you got it, I'm there, but I'm moving slow.
Oh, no, mine doesn't have the red, so.
No, it's not in red. It's just there's a little line on the side that shows the changes. Sometimes.
I just want to resend, this link.
Yeah.
Send, here, I'll forward that, yeah.
Yep. Okay. I'm looking.
Okay, everyone, I'm resending this link.
Yeah, so from my reading of the city's, the GPO list, this has not existed before. This is a brand new GPO. There's no current one on the website, so this is all new language. So there actually is there is a version that has the changes highlighted.
Okay.
It is the version. Window tip meters draft ARG JAPBL. So June 13th. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, copy link. Okay, sent.
I have the language for the email. Can I read the questions?
Sure.
Okay.
Going back to the
Arresty restraint.
rescue restraint.
Okay,
go
so
ahead.
question number 1. The previous GPO on arresty restraint did not make behind the back handcuffing mandatory. In this updated
I'm so sorry, will you?
Yeah. The previous GPO on arresty restraint did not make behind the back handcuffing mandatory. In this updated GPO, it makes behind the back cuffing mandatory. If an arrestee is not part of one of the accepted groups, but is compliant with officer orders and is not posing a threat to themselves or others, can you help us understand why CDP wishes to make behind the back cuffing mandatory instead of giving the officer discretion whether to cuff the arrestee in front? And then 2, because we have expanded the list of exceptions, we are thinking about changing the order of some of the sections of this GPO to essentially be listed in the following order. A, general rule, members shall handcuff all arrestees with the subsection instructions of how to handcuff arrestees, i.e. double locking, front versus back, etc. B, exceptions, list of groups that handcuffing exceptions apply to. Whether front handcuffing or no handcuffing or alternative handcuffing strategies, and then C, situations in which the exceptions may be overridden, i.e. when the arrestee is posing a threat to themselves, officers, or others. And then basically, are you okay with that structure? Do you want it to mirror
Yeah, I
the
was like,
structure?
are you okay with that? Or mirror the,
Yeah.
you could even say, I mean, is there any impact on the use of this document in the field
Mhm.
by not having the exceptions listed first. I guess my thing is, if this is something they're like have to reference in real time, they are probably used to looking at it in a certain way.
Sure.
I could be overthinking it. Maybe they have it mostly memorized, so this isn't something I'm sure they have to do often.
Utilizing. Okay, are you okay with that structure? Or is the desire to list exceptions first so that officers utilizing the GPO in the field can easily reference it? Okay, and then
Good.
I should send it to Simon, and then he's on,
Simon, Muscle,
yeah.
Schlott,
Who have you
Graham.
been?
What?
Who should I email this to?
Simon, Schlott, Muscle, Graham. And it's possible you'll get some one-to-one.
Jared Schlott or?
Yeah.
Jared Schlott, okay.
You might get some feedback, and maybe we could, if you were to be able to get feedback, we could write something up and then still have them come to the next meeting with a better version, an updated
like
version.
Yeah.
And then, but there's no point to just wait, but because then they come, they can answer all the questions, whatever. It might be good to see if we can get some one-on-one feedback.
In the email, I'll just say, we have these questions. We're working on revising this GPO. We have these questions. We would also like to make sure to have you guys come to our August policy committee meeting for further discussion.
Give them the date
on
for that. And you could CC me on it without a problem. That'd be great.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah. That won't break any quorum issues. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Let's go back to window tint meters. So that, I just sent that link. And again, just that has that line added. Members shall not stop vehicles solely on suspicion that a vehicle's tint violates Ohio Revised Code. That's pretty much, it sort of combines a couple of sentences there, but it adds the shall not stop only for this.
Oh, and the version I sent is correct. It just wasn't highlighted. It is in there,
Okay.
by the way. So,
Okay. All right.
I think we can probably, well, that's up to you.
And there's one other change is highlighted toward the end. Ensure it's officer in charge responsibilities, so OIC responsibilities. Section 6, subsection B. Ensure any tint meters that require service are reported to the budget unit within 48 hours. So I'm trying to look at what is this language?
Oh, it used to say within 1 week, or do we change it to 1 week?
This is the good question. Too many pieces of paper here. It didn't have anything before. Ensure any tint meters that require service are reported to the budget unit. So we added 48 hours.
So
what is the,
this one says 1 week.
It does? Okay.
Yeah.
We had this conversation, so I'm glad you're asking this question.
But I think that conversation was a different GPO.
Yeah.
That where we were talking about, and we were asking the officer, it was about certain service repairs, but was it within this one?
Here I think it's with one week. We settled on 1 week. Yeah.
Okay.
There are some version problems here. So we'll go with 1 week. I think that, because I remember that conversation.
Yeah, I do too. And they 48 hours was not reasonable.
Oh. Okay. So those are the two changes, 1 week and not stopping solely due to suspicion of a window tint violation. Any other questions? I would like to make a motion that we pass this general police order, 4.06.17 window tint meters.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
Well, we'll get the version version thing worked out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll
yeah, yeah.
finalize that
Yeah.
and it will reflect the language that's actually, yeah, it reflects the language that says shall not stop as a primary stop. Members shall not stop vehicles solely due to suspicion of a window tint violation and shall be reported to the budget unit within 1 week.
Okay.
Otherwise, I think we're good. Okay.
No
I
more
will take a
discussion
vote
from-
here. Commissioner Coleman,
I, yes, is what you say, not
you
I.
can say yes or I don't know what
Approved.
matters. Commissioner Morera Benito,
Aye.
and I will also say yes, I, and affirmative. And that means we have passed this GPO, and I will send it along to the division. Phew, all right. This is always harder than you think it's going to be. So with that, we're going to move on to 5.15.19, which is currently titled Abandoned Baby 30 days or less of age. So Commissioner Miller, I put in here, you'll see this newer version that was printed out just now this afternoon, right before the meeting. I basically accepted all her changes and incorporated them with a little bit of revision. So I hope you had a chance to look at hers, and if you did, then it's pretty much.
This is hers. The one with no.
No, there's the review. There's a document that says that
Oh,
this
this, got it.
review, and she has some reflections on it, and then she actually has corrections or suggestions.
Okay.
And so what I did was I took those and incorporated into the original document with a few little minor grammar changes. So that's really where things stand, and that's the document you have before you. So hopefully you've had a chance to look at her stuff, and we could read through it. It's not that long. I mean, I think.
I just want to shout out,
Commissioner Miller.
yeah, Commissioner
Yeah.
Miller for this great work.
Yeah, it's really good
I
work.
was really impressed when I read it, and I was grateful that
Yeah, she's always thoroughly going through things.
Yeah.
and I really appreciate her stepping up to help out.
Yeah. I mean, I think the big changes are, rather than say abandoned baby, say safe haven, infant, some clarification there, changing out words, to make sure, we're talking about custody, not possession, things like that, and relinquishment as opposed to abandonment also. I think it's pretty thorough. So yeah. And offering, there's one question here. I missed a few things, and this is actually I would like to have this conversation. There's language around parent here, and I'm just wondering, like in procedures 1, section 1, subsection B, if the parent who is relinquishing the child is on scene, officers shall offer the individual, and I changed language from parent to individual, because I wonder, and this is an open question, I hope it doesn't complicate things too much, but what if it's an individual who is not the parent? Do we know if it's the parent? Do we have to know?
Redirect me again.
So section 1, subsection B, and I missed one mention of parent there. It says, if the parent who is relinquishing the child is on scene, officers shall offer to the individual, and I changed it there from parent to individual. Surrendering the infant, if possible, these materials, and the rest is what Commissioner Miller had said. But my question now is a new change is, should we be saying parent or should we be saying individual?
So I think that the safe haven law says parent.
Okay,
So I think
that answers that
because
question.
also you shouldn't be able to relinquish a baby that's not yours.
Yes. Okay. Of
So you don't have custody.
course, you may not have evidence that this is
Right,
the parent.
but I think that
Well, it's not. I mean, it's just offering them materials, though, right?
Yeah.
I don't think this is going to somehow support that person had rightful custody.
Yeah.
So, I like it how it says if the parent or individual,
Oh, okay.
because, well, that's what the one I'm reading says. Oh,
Under
the wrong
B,
thing.
under B, it says if the parent who is relinquishing the child is on scene.
Yeah, so like I said, I had swapped out individual for parent, but I missed that one. If we say
Sorry.
parent or individual, that would be a little bit broader. I mean, you're right that safe haven law,
Okay, here's the two.
a parent, mother or father can take a child to safe havens.
And
Law provides protection from prosecution only for the newborn's parents. So that was to your point.
mhm.
So we can, of course, have the authority to broaden that.
Well,
least
if it were
specifically.
something other, to me, just getting that individual helpful materials, I don't see the harm in that, because this GPO is not going to, we don't know who is dropping the baby off. So it's not like, well, you're not the mom or dad, so you can't have these
Right.
helpful community resources,
And you
like your
can't,
pamphlets.
you have to keep the child, even though it's not
Right.
yours. Sorry.
Sure.
So parent or individual might be a good,
I like that
Yeah.
word.
yeah. Okay.
Okay, not to put a cog in the wheel, but these are very different now that I'm looking at the, so
Which are very different.
I thought we were looking at the one, these are Commissioner Miller's comments, correct?
Yes, and I incorporated
And
them
you put them
into,
into this, so I should be looking at this?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I like that. I mean, I think no matter who drops the baby off, we should be doing those things.
yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. We can take another minute or two if you want.
Oh,
but
yeah, I do need a minute because I was reading the. give me one
Okay.
second.
Yeah. Take your time.
Perfect. Yeah, and at the top we do correctly state that the law is apparent. You know.
So we're not changing. Yeah, we're not
Right.
changing that part, but
Right.
Can I ask one clarifying
sure.
question? When it says delivered,
Maybe we should use the word
under
relinquish.
2, make reasonable attempts to identify or pursue the person who delivered the child. Does that mean
Where are you now? Sorry.
Under B, number 2?
Okay. Yeah.
Does delivered mean the person relinquishing the
I think we
infant?
should use the
or
word
is
relinquish
that-
there.
Yeah,
I think we
okay.
should- and it's also at the top.
Yeah, because I heard deliver as gave birth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
Oh,
we
okay,
should be
yeah.
consistent on relinquish.
I actually like the original on that.
Where is-
if you go to Commissioner Miller's version and read B2,
Yeah, she says relinquish. Only if.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just the relinquishing, doing relinquish instead of deliver.
Yeah. I think that's a good catch.
Yeah, and so then on the top also, yeah.
okay.
The top and down below.
Yeah.
We'll make sure we fix that.
Yeah.
That's a very good catch.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought I'd gone through it pretty quickly,
Yeah.
but I thought I'd caught all that, but obviously I
Yeah,
didn't.
no, that's okay. We caught it. Humor.
Yep. No, it's good that we did, because that needs to be consistent. Okay.
I've had a chance to review this, and I think we can
Okay.
probably move on.
Oops, sorry.
All right. So I'll make a motion that we vote to approve this GPO as revised, as we've discussed.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Okay. Too much paper. Okay.
Hold on.
It is. Okay, so we will proceed to a vote. Commissioner Coleman,
And congrats for getting 2 knocked off the list.
Commissioner Marrera Benito,
Aye.
Commissioner Van Leer, I say aye, and that's a total of 3. We have passed this GPO. All right, so let's move on to vehicle pursuits. Commissioner Marrera Benito, please proceed.
Commissioner Coleman and I worked on this together, and taking feedback from the last meeting, we have made some updates, and so I'll just kind of summarize them. Mostly the updates were made under the procedures section. And what we have done is there were some questions about what the standard should be. The standard of evidence, is that what it's called? Standard of evidence? Evidentiary standard?
Sure.
Yeah. So what the standard should be for determining whether these criteria are met for violent felony and armed and dangerous. And what we have decided is to put it as
Probable cause.
as probable cause. This is not the most updated draft.
You said
Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. No, it is. Yeah, this is the correct draft.
That's right.
Yeah, sorry. So that probable cause must be met, that the suspect operating the vehicle or occupants within the vehicle are in refusing to stop at the officer's direction and flees apprehension for a violent felony, and the officer has probable cause to believe that the suspect operating the vehicle or occupants within the vehicle are armed and dangerous. And then the third criteria is that the immediate danger of the pursuit is less than the immediate or potential danger to the public if the suspect remains at large. And then 4, the officer operating an authorized emergency vehicle with lights and sirens activated during the pursuit and the vehicle's GPS tracking software is fully functioning. I want to also shout out Co-Chair Zayed for working with us on this and suggesting the change around the GPS software. That is the software that then supervisors who are monitoring the pursuit would use to be able to track the location, speed of the car, and other conditions. So we want to make sure that that software is fully functioning. We did email the division to see if calling it the GPS tracking software is the right language, and if not, we will update it. The other change, so the big change in that section, in addition to the GPS software piece, is just setting the standard as probable cause. The other change that we have made under exceptions, under section E, which is officers shall not, we added initiate pursuits between the hours of 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday during the CMSD school year. And so the reason why we want to do that is that we want to prevent pursuits from potentially causing injury or fatalities to children who are on the street, walking home from school. So that is, those are the big changes that we made. The next steps are we want to solicit community feedback. And so we would like to have our staff send a PDF version of this GPO to our email listserv in a form that has the text of the GPO with a comment box where people can leave comments. And then I also sent this to the division, and we would like to get feedback from officers as well. So we want to give until August 1st to collect feedback, and then based on the feedback that we receive, we will make potential changes and adjustments to the GPO, and then discuss and potentially vote on this GPO at the August meeting. So I will work with Jocelyn and Sam to solicit the community feedback, and also we'll work with CDP to see what the best way to solicit feedback from officers is.
And will the feedback come to you from the division, or will it go to Pete, or how's that work?
I don't know. One thing we could do is we could create another form specifically for officers, or we could just send CDP the general feedback form and have them circulate that. So I think it depends. Do we want,
How do we usually do it?
I don't think normally we get our feedback from the policy division. So if we're asking for more broad feedback from members,
I think going through the policy division is fine if that's how they're set up.
Yeah.
We don't want to overstep and go over their policy division and be like, hey, everyone.
No, what I mean is we could send them a link to a form that they could pass along if they want to. So I think the question is, do we want to create an officer feedback form that's different than the general feedback form, or do we want just all the feedback to come in the same place?
I don't know if it's necessary. I just was curious who they would direct it to.
Yeah, I was thinking that we just send the same form that everyone else would fill out. Because officers are members of the community as well.
And we send it through the policy.
Yeah,
unit,
through the,
and
yeah. I mean, I don't have all the officers.
yeah, we'll have to see what they're able
and
to
they may
do.
not pass it along, and that's okay.
I
But
see what you mean. Okay, yeah. But regardless, though, we for sure are gonna get feedback directly from the policy division, and that will go via email to you or the chair.
Yeah.
I sent an email with the policy in it today, so
Okay. Okay.
I assume they
We'll
might
look out
send
for
it to me. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, that's a good idea. Not what I was saying, but a good idea.
Yeah. Do Commissioner Coleman or Commissioner Zayed, do you have anything you wanted to add or clarify?
Not really, just that thank you guys for the work. I'm really impressed, and I think we're off to a great start. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll second that. Especially I will just say she's been in meetings, like meeting with people, talking to the community. We set up a meeting with you, co-chair, just to get your personal experience. So I'll say you have done a lot of work on this and great work. Yeah.
Say that one thing. So last night, Sam, our community engagement specialist.
Sure.
Yeah. And I were at the second district community policing committee meeting, and we kind of let people know that we have a draft of this and we're soliciting feedback. I know that Sam already got an email from someone from that meeting, but somebody came up to me after and said that that her daughter and granddaughter live off Pearl Road, and that they get a lot of pursuits down there, mostly I think coming from Parma, because I used to live in that area and I saw a lot of pursuits coming from Parma. And I did explain that this GPO won't impact what Parma does, but she just talked about just constantly feeling afraid that her granddaughter or her daughter could be hit. And so she said to me that she really wants to see a more restrictive policy. And that, I think the challenging thing with this policy is that people are split. Some people really want, especially people who have had their vehicles stolen, want to see or have been the victim of a violent crime, want to see more pursuits happen because they want to get justice, which is valid. And also, a lot of people are afraid of pursuits and have, lived firsthand the damage that can happen. So we recognize that it's a tricky balance to find.
Yeah, and given that too, I'll also just add, I encourage our fellow commissioners to pay close attention to this one, because it will be a meaningful vote when we ultimately get it through.
I just want to add though, I remember, after the situation with my cousin Tamia Chapman, just thinking how could this happen during this time? And I remember bringing it up to you, but I feel like you actually did an amazing job of finding the balance, and that revision you made in this policy reflects that. So, thank you.
I think also one of the things that I really hope that we could accomplish with this is that did we make changes in the policy that could have prevented your cousin's death? And obviously that won't bring her back, but I think that's something that matters.
Okay. So we'll look forward to that down the road and to all the work in between. So is there, in terms of the pursuit investigation team, GPO? Okay, so that's coming. You're working on that. Okay.
It's another GPO that's about investigating.
Pursuits.
Oh, it's separate.
Separate GPO, yeah.
Okay.
So that's just, flagging that because they kind
Oh
of,
my gosh, are we through this stack?
yeah. And there's still a couple, the rest is just some quick discussion, I think. So if we can move on from those, all right. So the other, and I was just, 4.05.02, duties of command and superior officers. Commissioner Miller also provided some review on that last month, and I have not had a chance to incorporate that and look at that. So I will prioritize that for the next meeting and try to get something out to you fairly quickly on that to review, and also share it with the division, the policy unit, and get their feedback. So I don't know that, I can't remember, I think she just sent it to me, I don't know if I've sent it to everybody else, but I can send her reflections sooner and then try to incorporate that. Since the two, it seemed, unless somebody else wants to take it on, but the two of you have got, and she did not do quite as much in terms of putting language in a draft, but she goes by, she does, make suggestions, clear suggestions for different sections. So we'll have to take a look at that. Any questions about that? That is also in the in that SharePoint folder. Okay. All right. The other question then is, we did a lot of work last year on the corrective action guidance GPO, and that was sent to the monitoring team in the Department of Justice back in November, December. I think we passed it, I believe, in November as a commission, so it was sent. We got the comments back, and Commissioner Benito, you and I did some work on that, incorporating their comments. So I'm going to take another look at that, and then we will also get that out to the committee and co-chair and staff for your review, hopefully within the next few days, if I can. And then, we'll see what happens. Well, not we'll see what happens. So we'll pick it up in August at our August meeting. So that's really it. That's everything on the agenda that we have. So. Are there any other questions or any other new business that anybody wants to bring up, or things we should be focused on? There's a more of a list. I can certainly take a look at the list and see where we need to go next. But I think these are some pretty still substantive things that we could do in the next month.
I have some items on that list that I've not forgotten about. Just
can you remind you?
I think the social media policy.
Oh yeah, right.
GPO.
Okay. Do you have like notes and things? Did I send you some things from our policy analyst?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
So I guess next steps, I will start. I've been focusing on the rules. I will start going through my list and get you, I guess, proposed changes that we can then bring here to discuss.
Okay. Great. I think that's about it. If there are no further questions or items for discussion, we will adjourn this meeting.
Great.
Thank you all.